For nerds such as myself, who just love looking at sales data for whatever reason, Christmas comes 4 times a year. Yes, it is time for the quarterly Nintendo financial report. However, this Christmas is like an extra special Christmas. It's like the first Christmas after you get a new baby, or like the first Christmas in a new house. Something like that. Whatever. This is the first financial report we have gotten for a full quarter since the launch of the Switch 2. So this is our first real, actual, very good taste of how the Switch 2 and all of its stuff has been selling. So exciting. Before we get to that, though, we should touch on sales numbers for the original Switch. Obviously, sales have gone down pretty dramatically. I am becoming less and less sure all the time that it's going to beat the PS2's magical growing number. However, according to official sales data, the Switch is now only 10,000 units away from beating the DS and becoming the #1 highest selling Nintendo console ever. And because all of this sales data only goes through the end of September, so now we have all of October and a little bit of November, I think it is safe to say that it has done it between then and now. We still can't make it official. We can't make it official until it is official, and Nintendo says it is official. However, we can be reasonably confident that it happened. The Nintendo Switch is now the #1 best-selling Nintendo console ever. Can we just get a little bit of that? Just a little bit. I think it only makes sense. As always, whether or not it ends up beating the PS2, the ball really is in Nintendo's court. You know, if they want to just kind of phase out the need of a Switch 1, try to get everybody on Switch 2, then probably won't happen. But if they say, hey, look, the Switch is still great, let's start like lowering the prices instead of raising them, maybe make it a budget thing. If they, pulled a predictable move based on what they have done in the past, then they could still give us a new model of Switch 1. They still could give us like an somehow even cheaper, like budget model. At this point, I'm kind of doubting that they will, but they still technically could. And if they did, then that would probably help push the Switch past PS2. But I don't know, whatever. Let's get to the exciting part. How is Switch 2 doing? Through the end of September, the Switch 2 sold 10.36 million units. And that is very good. That certainly is good. The poor Wii U is always a big point of comparison, and it's come pretty close to outselling the Wii U in 4 months. It's just a few million away. And here's the thing. Pokemon came out in October. These numbers do not reflect any Switch 2 sales that happened because of Pokemon, and I'm sure many of them did. I think a lot of people were waiting for a Pokemon game to play. I know it's not just a Switch 2 game, but I really do think that probably shifted some units. So even that 10.36 is probably pretty outdated by now. And also, you have to consider that with any console, the majority of your sales, you're going to get the biggest, hugest sales bump, of course, during the holidays. And the holiday season you could probably technically say it probably starts in September nowadays. But yeah, we're not even at Black Friday yet. It's not even December yet. They are going to sell a lot of units over the next couple of months. And in fact, Nintendo themselves, they seem to be slightly surprised by this because, they seemed to be predicting their own numbers with a good amount of confidence. I think they've entered this generation pretty confidently, pretty sure that their success would kind of carry over, but it seems that even they were shooting a little short. Their initial forecast for the first year of the Switch 2's life was 15 million units, and they have now upped that to 19 million, which, yeah, makes sense if it can sell 10 million in 4 months, and we haven't even hit the holidays yet. Yeah, I think 15. Yeah, 19 is looking, that would be crazy. I don't know if we will hit 19, but if it's the holidays, and then we still have almost half of a year to go with more games coming out and more opportunities for people to buy. So, no, it's doing well. It's doing really, really, really well. If you want to break down the individual territories, it sold 3.86 million in the Americas, 2.4 million in Europe, 2.35 in Japan, and then just under 2 million for the rest of the world. So yeah, I suppose it is worth mentioning simply because it is a big part of the conversation. But, you know, there's a lot of people mad at Nintendo right now and not wanting to support them. And from the beginning, there's been kind of this idea, like, will the backlash kind of affect things? Like, it, at least right now, it is not. In the long term, if this hobby keeps getting more and more expensive, if the economy keeps getting worse and worse, then, like, sure, we may end up seeing, you know, there's been some, like, greater reports about the whole industry. People are spending less on games. They're buying more old games and all that stuff. So, sure, some of that could potentially start to show through at some point. But at least right now, you've got a lot of very excited early adopters, which I think is probably more impressive because it could be argued that the Switch 2 doesn't really have that one absolute must-have system seller yet. It's very, very debatable because I think plenty of people do see Mario Kart World as that. It is a Mario Kart game. So, like, I don't know, there is, like, the controversy of the open world, and there's not a lot of content and stuff, but, like, it still functions as a Mario Kart game in the way that just about anybody would expect, you know, mainly, like, the general audiences. It is a Mario Kart game. There is a brand new Mario Kart game to play on Switch 2. So you could probably argue that even that it probably is enough. And then I would say Donkey Kong is that. But I know that that's not everybody. It did, like, you know, the game didn't click with everyone. It's not like this universally loved thing, like some, you know, big year 1 or 2 Switch 1 games or whatever. It is for me. For me, DK Bonanza is a system seller. So yeah, I don't know. So there are a surprising number of people who believe that it still doesn't have that must-have thing. And if that is true for at least a good amount of the playing population, then yeah, that makes it even more impressive that the Switch 2 has already shifted so many units. It means that it could potentially only have up to go. You know, there are only going to be more games and bigger games, and we will get some of those, like, must-have games eventually. And then, yeah, I don't know. It's a good start. And if you want to talk about software, Mario Kart World, again, there is the controversy and all that, but, like, it has really not mattered at all. 9.57 million units, definitely has passed 10 by now since the end of September, and that's an attach rate of 92%. So 92% of people who own a Switch 2 have Mario Kart World. DK Bonanza, 3.5 million, which, yeah, it's a little disappointing. It is a little, I mean, like, there's always been this, like, oh, it's a DK game instead of a Mario game. It's probably not going to sell as much of a Mario game, but maybe it will because it's still really appealing. I think a Mario game would have sold more. I did want to see more. However, this is only the start, and I'm basically sure that Bonanza is going to have legs. You know, even if it can't really hope to outperform a Mario game necessarily, just because of the name that's on the box. The Mario name kind of carries a lot of weight. I do still think that it is going to be an evergreen classic for the entirety of the life of the Switch 2. It is going to be something that a lot of people pick up when they get new Switches. You know, you really see two kinds of games. If you look back at the sales data for the original Switch, you know, you had your games that had legs and didn't, you know, like you couldn't maybe always cleanly separate the two categories, but sometimes it did feel that way. You have your games that are so broadly appealing that people will purchase them over time as they get new Switches, and so you will see that number grow throughout the course of the entire generation. And then you had some games that were just a bit more niche, and they would sell 2 or 3 million right off the bat, and then never enough more to have, you know, they only update the sales numbers at like whole million figures past a certain point. So you had a lot of games that just didn't, but I'm basically certain that Bonanza is going to have legs. It's probably not going to sell 30 million units or whatever like Mario Odyssey did, but I do think 3.5 is just the beginning. I think 10 eventually is probably still a pretty darn safe bet. You do have to consider that early attach rates are usually inflated because people who get a new system just really want something new to play on it. That attach rate is going to only lower over time as more games come to the system. But yeah, I'm still reasonably confident that Bonanza will go on to do very well. It'll do good. So yeah, what else? Switch to software. It sold 20.62 million units, and I do presume that is only Switch 2 exclusive software. And of that 20 million, 8.1 million were bundled with the console itself. So basically, Mario Kart. So that is one single first-party Nintendo game taking up nearly half of all Switch 2 software sales. So yeah, I think we still don't quite know how like third parties are selling, but we will see that more in the long run, I suppose. There were some early stories that some third parties were not super duper happy with sales, but then of course you've got the whole game key card controversy and all that stuff. So yeah, kind of waiting to see how third party on Switch 2 ends up shaking out. I mean, I know it's Christmas today. I gotta be happy with my presents right now, but boy, next Christmas, that's gonna track all of October, November, and December. It's gonna be very, very exciting to see how the Switch 2 does. And the funny thing about it too is like the obsession with numbers. It's not even down to like wanting something to do well necessarily, you know, like this isn't me just being like, oh, I hope the Switch 2 does well. I hope it's the most successful thing ever. It's more, it's just, I don't know. Just the numbers themselves are fascinating. It's almost separated from my own like Nintendo fandom. It's interesting seeing a product do really well. You know what I mean? It's just interesting to see it like breaking records, and just something about it is really, it's just fun to track. There's that part of me that's like, maybe Nintendo does deserve to have their egos knocked down a notch, you know, with all this like pricing and stuff. Maybe they deserve to have lower Switch 2 sales than they initially expected. That'll teach them a lesson. But then there's the other part of me that I just like to see the numbers go up. It's just fun. It's like high scores. You know, how high of a score can Nintendo get with this one? It's weirdly fascinating.